我们是有这个全都是录像的，就是 we are recording this from beginning to the end, so just let you know that. 好，现在呢，我把这个 podium 把这个讲台交给我们的这个 Luca 老师啊 ，Luca Yang。
Hello, 大家好，我是 Luca. Everyone knows me already, so there shouldn't be a need for a self-introduction. I'm going to be speaking English most of the time today, just because Ken and Afra are much better at Chinese than I am, so I don't want to end up embarrassing myself. But yeah, I think a lot of people are here already, so we can go ahead with the presentation. I made a PowerPoint for you all, and there I'll reintroduce myself in case some of you have forgotten about me already. Oh, Anna's entered the room as well. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Yeah, and welcome abroad. Welcome on the journey. Oh, crap. Okay, so can everyone see my screen? I just get a thumbs up from Afra.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
all good. Scott as well. Yeah, Scott's on my main screen. That's cool. Okay, so Hello, and welcome to Luca, a talk by Luca. I decided to name it after myself because I'm, that egocentric. Here's a little few things about me. First and foremost, because this is the most important thing, if you haven't followed my Instagram, you should definitely follow my Instagram. It's super worth it. My students can all testify. Follow my Instagram, LucaYZ. Okay, anyways, I was born in Auckland, New Zealand. There I went to Auckland Grammar School, and before which I went to King's School. Okay, so I am very much an Aucklander. I'm not sure if you can tell by my accent, but there should be some New Zealander in there. I left for London in 2016 to study at the London School of Economics, where I studied economics, which is not particularly special. Yeah, so there I studied for 3 years for my undergraduate degree before leaving to Boston again to study my master's in education policy at Harvard University. So I go around quite often. I've traveled quite a bit, and yeah, it's been a pretty big journey so far. So a lot of you guys are probably interested, so I had to highlight this also to give myself a little bit of a pride boost here. So in 2015, I topped the world in A-level English literature. And hence I've been teaching English along with Afra and Ken for the past 4 or 5 years. Okay, so a few things about me extra. So I am a writer. I'm a passionate writer. I write all the time. I'm a teacher, and I know there are some of us here that are my students, which is awesome. I don't take too many students anymore, just out of precaution for time, but hopefully I'll have more availabilities to accommodate soon. I'm also an entrepreneur together with Afra and Ken. Obviously, we've created this awesome English Writing Academy in Olympia Writing School. We host these awesome camps. A lot of you guys have gone on the Queenstown camp or the Tang Yihua camp. Those were really some of the highlights of my life. Okay, so passions, there are too many, multi-dimensional. So I have writing first and foremost, obviously. I have anime, and I'm a guy who's watched like 1,000 plus animes. So no one here in this room can contest with me on that. I've actually gone to Japan once, and I went inside this anime bar where there are like all these otakus sitting there. And these bartenders who know like every anime, and I was still educating them on what they haven't watched. So that's the extent to which I'm, invested into anime. Games, I played games from young to old now. Like I still play games. It's kind of addicting, but I've navigated my way through and managed to kind of, control myself a little bit there. But there's PC gaming, there's console gaming, PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, everything, you name it. I'm a passionate traveler. I've been to around 30, 40 countries across Europe, across America, China, the Asian countries, all of those. I love tennis, but I also suck at it, admittedly, but I also quite like the things that I suck at just because there's a, big learning curve and high marginal returns when learning. Okay, so here's a snapshot of my development through the years. I do believe I've talked about that. I've shown students this before, so I'm just gonna leave it here and for you guys to appreciate for like 5 seconds. Then I'm gonna move on because this is all old news, old stories. Okay. Would appreciate a few the thumbs up. Like I think my favorite is definitely this guy here. Thanks, Jamie.
So signature, right?
That is pretty cool as well. Like the Kim Jong-un haircut, really did not do me a good favor there. Yeah. How do I clear the? Here we go.
I'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got it. Okay, cool. Oh, no. How do I get out of this? There we go. Okay, so let's move on to the aims of this talk. Okay, the first and foremost thing I'm trying to accomplish through this talk is to inspire you into thinking more about going overseas for university and to be more realistic about it as well. So hopefully after this talk, you'll feel like, this prospect is not so far away. It's actually quite close to me. It's also to obviously inform you guys about, the application process, what you need, a few of my experiences here, right? My 2 cents, but I also want to ground you guys in your expectations. It's like through a 1-hour talk, there's no way I can cover all the hacks and how to get into one of these universities. It's a very long process, and yeah, I want to make sure that you guys know this is going to be a very brief snapshot, and there's a lot more work beyond this talk for you guys. Okay. Number 4 on the list is I want to befriend all of you. So I noticed already there are a lot of people that I know in this talk and a lot of people I don't know. So afterwards through the Q&A session and also beyond the Q&A session, reach out to me. I'm so happy to just talk. I don't charge for talking, although I should because I'm just joking. But yeah, I'm really keen on just like knowing what you guys are up to. Okay, so do reach out. Q&A will be at the end. We'll have an abundant amount of time for that, at least half an hour. So I just want to use that time to answer any questions. And I will give you some tips, but the focus of this talk is not in the tips. It's more of the kind of experience. Scott, you have your hand raised.
We have a question. Can we post it in chat?
Yeah, of course. Post it in chat, and Ken and Afra will interrupt me. Just don't unmute yourself, yeah? Yeah, or put up your hand as well. Like put up either put up your hand, or if you're uncomfortable with putting up your hand, then post it in the chat. Yeah. And do react, guys. Like this is interactive. It's pretty sad how I'm just like speaking to myself, looking at myself in the mirror and not seeing you all. So react. That would make me feel a lot less lonely. Okay. Yeah, and also just a warning, if I need to run all of a sudden, it's probably because that my stomach's been really bad lately. So I've got some TNT, like diarrhea. So just in case, for warning you all, if I run out suddenly, that's probably why. Okay, and I just want to get a quick show of hands, or you know what, just type it in the chat. Who's interested more in the UK versus the US? So like, just state your preference in the chat. US, UK. Interesting. Okay, so both. Brian, hey Brian. Okay, US got like half, right?
I think we got more UKs.
Yeah, a few more UKs. That's interesting. Okay, this talk is going to be very interesting then. Okay, so a few more UKs. All right. Well, okay, before we talk about universities in general, I do want to just speak a little about my experience here at Harvard, because I'm doing my master's right now, so it's especially pertinent. Okay, so what's it like at Harvard? The answer is it depends on the courses you take. Okay, there are, as a master's student, there are some courses that are relatively easy, and there are some courses that are monstrously difficult. For example, there are certain writing courses that I find pretty easy and a waste of time. But there are also certain, courses in economics or math that I find monstrously difficult. And there are some geniuses there in the classroom, and I would definitely not identify myself with them, right? And I would say my coursework is generally intense. Not to say difficult necessarily, just intense, meaning there's a lot of work. Okay, so it's not like the work that you can't figure out, or you spend hours scratching your head and scratching your toes. It's more just like they bombard you with work and mini assignments, testing throughout the semesters that build up, accumulate, and generally annoy the heck out of you. Amazing friends and culture. I love my friends here, the friends I've made. And also the culture here is great, the student culture, and we'll speak more on that in the coming slides. Contrary to popular belief, the US has amazing food, okay? The food here is cheap and delicious, way better than the UK, in my opinion, and miles ahead of New Zealand, for sure. The lobster is really famous in Boston, so you can get like lobster this big, like world famous Boston lobster. They're like divine. They're juicy, succulent, and they only cost like, I think 15 USD to 20 USD, which for lobster is very, very cheap, and it's like fresh, live, and everything. I've only traveled to New York, Miami, and Vegas, but I'm hoping to go around more, and you guys can kind of follow my travels on Instagram. Yeah. What's it like at Harvard? Okay, so this is part 2. You meet very cool people. The first person that I thought was really cool was one of my upperclassmen at a Harvard Kennedy School course that I took, who was the Singaporean Prime Minister, who is the current Singaporean Prime Minister. So I only just realized after graduating from that course, it's like this guy, the Singaporean Prime Minister, took that course, the very same seats that I sat in like a few years back. I can't remember his name. If anyone wants to type it in chat, feel free to do so. Singaporean Prime Minister. For my philosophy and economics course last semester, I was with this Nobel-winning economics professor, Indian economics professor called Amartya Sen. Some of you guys, anyone who's interested in economics or purports to be interested in economics should definitely be acquainted with him. He's very famous. He's got like hundreds and thousands of citations, probably the most famous economist alive. And also a funny one is Emma Rothschild. And yes, that is a real Rothschild from the Rothschild family. And no, they do not rule the world like most people say. But she is very kind. She bakes us cookies, and yeah, she's just a very generous old grandma. Yeah, so she teaches this history/philosophy/economics course that I took last semester. So it was really great, like being in the class full of such big names. So as a Harvard student, you can also cross-register in MIT courses. And if you're an MIT student, you can cross-register at Harvard. So that's something that people probably don't know, is the flexibility you have going around these schools. Right? So basically, if you get into Harvard, you get into MIT. If you get into MIT, you basically get into Harvard. Okay, so that's a huge benefit of being in this kind of Bostonian system, East Coast. Very cool. So I took one course at MIT called Ancient Future Technology. And the professor is actually a DJ, which is so cool. Like the professors here at, in the US are so interesting and more diverse than any other country. So he was a DJ, pretty good one at that. He's got like 5K followers on Instagram. He was part of the MIT Blackjack group. So he was a former gambler. There was actually a movie made about him called 21. And he won for, I think, around $50 million together with these 4 other people at casinos. He was counting cards because he's wicked smart, right? He goes to MIT. And he's one of the kindest human beings I know. And there will be a photo of him later on. Among other people, Thomas Kane, presidential advisor, secretary of education economics, also at Harvard. I'm also taking a course by him. There was a talk by the Microsoft CEO. I can't remember his name, but again, I thought that was cool. There are very cool restaurant entrepreneurs in this course on restaurants that I'm taking, as well as celebrity chefs like Gordon Ramsay, I think might be coming in to deliver a talk as well. So who knows Gordon Ramsay, by the way? Like, the idiot sandwich donkey guy. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not too old for that. Okay, business magnates, a shit ton of millionaires, billionaires, all over campus, famous lawyers, you know, people involved in the O.J. Simpson case, all that, and best-selling authors. So I actually had an email exchange with Junot Diaz. Who knows Junot Diaz? He's a best-selling author in New York Times, but I almost took a course by him called post-apocalyptic writing or something like that, which is so cool. Like, he's an MIT professor. Anyway, how is it like at LSE, which is my undergraduate institution? Honestly, I have less to say because I just studied my way through. There was a big, intense course load in the form of mathematics and also I didn't get to enjoy the campus life as much. But London was great, and I got to travel Europe a lot, so that was cool. And most importantly, I think the UK was more of like a spiritual development for me. So I grew to be independent. I saw the world. You know, my horizon is expanded indefinitely. And definitely here I need to highlight again through annotating that. Wait, no, this one. Yeah, I grew a sack and learned to trickle. So I had to, like, for example, survive on like, I think like 10 pounds a day, so $20 a day for food and everything. And London prices are astronomically high, so that was very difficult. So I was eating like $2 McDonald's meals for the first year at LSE, like being really unhealthy. And also confined to a really small studio as well, London studio. It was horrible, but looking back, it was kind of nice. And yeah, like my undergrad university was more defined by math than anything. So that was kind of out of my comfort zone because obviously my specialty is in English. And yeah, let me just close this. Okay. Can someone raise, Ken, could you raise that?
I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
So trickle,
Luca?
a trickle was the big one. Yeah, I really learned how to take a bullet.
Luca, I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
Can you actually buy McDonald's meal with $2?
You can. Oh my God, good,
Really?
good question. Holy
That's
crap.
new to
Okay,
me.
this is a good freaking question. Okay, so how you do it, right? They had these like student vouchers, right? And they were limited in quantity. And I took a bunch of them, right? And some of them were expired. Most of them were expired. They were like from the previous year, right? But then sometimes the people at the McDonald's counter wouldn't notice. So if you just give them the voucher, they'll be like, oh, sweet. And they'll just give you a $1 meal. Yeah, £1 meal, so $2 meal, right? Okay. So we had like, I think I had like this much stacked up of like basically you know, expired McDonald's vouchers. Yeah, but basically it was a rotation between McDonald's and KFC. So you know,
all the good choices of food, of course. Yeah.
UK food is horrible. Everyone who goes
pretty healthy,
UK,
I guess.
Yeah, anyone who goes to UK in the future, oh, Ami tofu. Okay, so getting my personal experience out of the way, I want to talk about US versus UK culture. So we're kind of sliding into the informative part of today's talk. All right, so the UK, who knows where these places are, by the way? Anyone got an idea? Yeah,
is that UCL?
In the
It's
UK.
not UCL, unfortunately.
It's in the UK.
It's in the UK. No
Cambridge?
shit. Yeah, who said Cambridge?
Me.
I can't see me, but appreciate you. Yeah, so the bottom one is Cambridge University. That is Trinity College, one of the most famous colleges at Cambridge, and the above one is Oxford University, and I think it's Magdalen College. Yeah, anyways, very Harry Potter-esque, beautiful place. Anyways, talking about the UK, really the three main areas you guys need to know about is Oxbridge, so that's the short for Oxford and Cambridge, London, and the rest. Okay, so really it all boils down to these three. So The systems are pretty much homogeneous, which means they're the same, except for Oxford and Cambridge. So Oxford and Cambridge have this tutoring system, which is world-class. No other university does it. Basically, what they do is assign you an individual professor as a tutor, right? So you guys meet up every single week and you guys are super close, and you guys get one-on-one time, like uncontested hours of time. You guys go over all your homework, make sure that he or she makes sure you're doing okay, on track, gives you career advice, is your friend. So I had a lot of my friends who went to Oxbridge who, received presents or books or wine from their professors. And I was always jealous about that because where I studied, it was more just like a survival of the fittest place. The collegiate system is also very interesting. So I'm not sure if all of you guys know this, but Oxford University, you don't actually go to Oxford University per se, or Cambridge University. You go to a college at Oxford or Cambridge University. So the two universities are entire towns, and they're split up into these colleges, right? So some of them you might have heard of, like Trinity, like this one here, and Magdalen over here. So Trinity was attended by I think Stephen Hawking and all these famous people, Isaac Newton, right? And then I think Magdalen College is where they filmed Harry Potter, the dining hall scene. So that's kind of cool. They also have a different application procedure. So they often require you to do interviews, admissions tests, and all of that. But we'll cover more on that in the following slides. The UK is very much academically focused. So there is a sporting culture, there is a kind of networking culture, but just think 100% academics most of the time. Okay. In the UK, you will be independent, which means you will be left alone to finish homework. You don't need to collab with anyone else. Studying is very much a solo, independent thing. It's funny because in the US, every single day I receive emails from, the school, from Harvard, kind of asking me, "Are you doing okay? How's your mental health? Are you like the weather is cold outside? Are you okay in this cold, right? But remember to wear an extra layer of jacket when you head out next. They very much hold your hand. In the UK, I basically didn't hear from the school for the whole 3 years that I was there, except for like when I was graduating. They were like, "By the way, your graduation ceremony is canceled." So yeah, that's great. Everyone is a cat in the UK, so that means they have the personality of cats. More kind of reserved to yourself, spend more time indoors because it's always raining outside, right? So if you think that you have more of a cat personality, namely independent, more introverted, more indoor species, then the UK is kind of for you. The system in the UK is quite special. So it's also quite like the Australia, New Zealand as well. So you specialize in one subject from the get-go, and you keep doing that subject until you graduate. There's very, very little flexibility. Okay, you go in, say you do economics, you graduate with economics. Okay, and there's pretty much no way you can take a course and say like biology or neuroscience. Or art or writing if you do economics. In the same way, if you do physics, then you wouldn't be able to take a course and say business, or there's very few things like conjoint and that kind of stuff. Everyone is hugely studious, so you don't see really any students slacking off. Everyone studies pretty hard, and at least where I went to undergrad, the 24-hour library was very welcome. In fact, they gave you free snacks to kind of incentivize you to stay overnight in that library, which I found to be quite exhausting. What stands out in the UK is the city and historical culture. Okay, so way less campus culture, more about the city itself. Just look at that. Look at London. What you can find in London. It's a magnificent mega city. And there's so much history kind of just scattered around. Everywhere you walk, you'll think that it's just like a historical book. So yeah, one of my favorite places to visit in London was I think it's called, I can't remember the name of the road, but it was where basically Jack the Ripper, the serial killer, the famous serial killer, roamed the streets. So I don't know why, it gave me some kind of like morbid curiosity, I guess. But yeah, so there are these kinds of places, and they're always open, and you do feel like you're a piece of history. If you're into history, the UK is where you should be. Examinations wise, very traditional. All right, so you get one exam at the end of each semester, and that's it. That's why we often have people not doing stuff for the first 6 weeks of school, and then in the last 4 weeks, when it's leading up to exams, people start crunching the numbers, and they start getting to work. Okay, so you don't get periodically assessed like in the US. Okay, you just get one giant nuke of an exam at the end. I find it very, very cool how UK is basically a gateway to Europe, and this is so understated. I don't think many people know this, but it's so cheap traveling from the UK to Europe. I definitely recommend this as part of your student experience if you guys are interested in going to the UK. Okay, being in Europe for 1 month will teach you more about life than an undergraduate degree will for 3 years. It just will. You'll meet so many people, you'll learn so many cultures, you'll learn to be independent, you'll see the world. That is so much more valuable than a fucking education. I shouldn't be saying that, but it's true. Okay, so and it's I got a ticket for £20, which is $40 return to Italy and back on one weekend. My friend went back to Germany every single weekend for £20, right? So I mean £10, so that's $20 there and back, from London to Germany. There are just all sorts of places you could explore, and I highly recommend it. I even rented a car and drove across Europe so many times. So yeah, that was one of my highlights, one of my best memories as a student. You have 10 very dense 3-year degrees instead of 4 years, so that's something to take into account. So you could imagine, from day one, you're basically given, a structure. You need to study this, and by the end of your studies, you will accomplish this and that. Okay, very dense, very structured, and very straightforward. Okay. Here's a photo of London, just to inspire you all. Here's another. I think this is taken in Oxford. And here's a photo dump of me and some friends in the UK. I don't know why this picture isn't loading, but anyways. Okay, so moving on to the United States. Okay, so it's a very, very different place. Okay, this is Stanford University. So that's next to Silicon Valley, one of the biggest tech universities in the world. And that's Harvard, where I am right now. That's Harvard Business School, actually. So the US, I would say, is more similar in culture to New Zealand than the UK, in the sense that people are generally more open and friendly. And in the UK, they're more oppressing and cold. Okay. Yeah, that's just my feeling. You guys might disagree when you guys go, if you guys go. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. So in the US, the first thing is periodic testing. There's a lot of periodic testing, which means you are assessed every single day, basically, every single week. Okay, so that's why the workload in the US much higher than the UK. UK is more about study. US is more about examinations. Assessment and studies, and I would actually say learning, because you just tend to learn more in the US just because of how many assessments there are. It forces you to kind of learn over a longer horizon, instead of just cramming everything into an exam and forgetting everything. You got more support and resources in the US. So a funny thing is, I've always found it so absurd how even in top universities like Cambridge or Oxford or LSE or Imperial College, they don't even have printers for free. The printers are shit. Okay, it's so inefficient. They're so if you try to get in touch with their customer service, right, university services, you will actually get AIDS. It's so frustrating. There's nothing more frustrating than UK customer service. Okay. Whereas in the US, it's much more modernized. You get updated facilities, all beautiful, spanking new, looks like they've been renovated and lit clean yesterday. And you got printers, which is awesome. Academics take up only 50% of your studies. What do I mean by that? There's a lot going on. Like you need to attend talks, for example, the Bill Gates talk, or like some Mark Zuckerberg or that Microsoft CEO, or some important person has come to campus. You need to dedicate time to that. You have networking events, which means meeting new and awesome people like entrepreneurs or startup people, amazing peers, meeting going out with professors to get dinner, right? There's a lot of this kind of social aspect to it. So if you're not a social animal, I would say refrain. Yeah. So it does get exhausting even for me, and I'm quite extroverted. Okay. Another advantage of the US, I guess, is the need-based financial aid, and in my opinion, that's a lot fairer. So you guys might already notice, but the US fees for university are much higher than the UK, like almost double. But at the same time, if you can demonstrate that your family is not earning above a threshold, then you get to go for free. So US pays for every dime. And not many people know that, which is so sad, that they have need-based aid and everyone gets a shot to go. Okay, so everyone, in essence, all around the world, as long as you can get in, you can go to Harvard, you can go to Stanford. You don't need to worry about costs. Well, you need to worry about surviving and eating food there, and you can get a part-time job for that. But in terms of tuition, they pay it all. People are more confident and social. I mean, it's just the fact that it's a more robust economy, bigger economy. I think there's more sun in the US as well. And it's just a general kind of, I think UK people are a little more withdrawn, but they are very, they're party animals. So when you put them in a party, they go crazy. But generally at school, they're all like posh and shit. Like, how was your day today? Would you like a cup of tea? That kind of stuff. Yeah, US is much more chill. And yeah, everyone is a dog. So think, in the UK, think that everyone is a cat. In the US, generally, everyone is a dog. Okay, they need to be around people. They need to, be pet. They need to be pet. They love hugging. They love, they love attention. They love talking. They love it when they're spoiled. Thank you, Scott, for the react. And I would say the US is also very diverse and flexible, especially in course selection. So you guys already have heard, I'm taking like a course in, for example, restaurant innovation by famous chefs like, Gordon Ramsay, right? I'm also taking courses in philosophy and economics. I'm also taking courses in education policy. I'm also taking courses in, ancient future technology, that kind of stuff, right? I have friends taking courses in poetry, for goodness sake, right? So you have a lot of flexibility. You can actually chase your passions. Like that works a lot for me now, because I realize that while I love economics and education and all that, they're not my only passions. I love also writing, and I love, I'm interested in other things, right? So in the UK, no way. Okay, no way. They're like, screw you. You focus on your field, streamline, right? Focus. And the US, they're like, you can afford to screw around a little, right? So you're really given the trust and flexibility to do what you want. While the UK emphasizes self-study and independence, which is really good for a lot of people. Even a lot of my students learn better when left alone to actually process. The US emphasizes teaching. Okay, so they make sure that all the professors can teach very well, first and foremost, above above professorship or above what rank they are. They must know how to teach. Okay. So it just also happens to be that the few top education schools are also in the US, so that's where most of the education research takes place. And as such, the university system or the teaching system is generally a little more up to date. At the same time, there's a lot of this will annoy you guys. Okay, so there's a lot of hand holding and spoon feeding. Like I said, they check up on you, like, are you wearing enough clothes for the coming winter? Make sure you wear an extra layer. Make sure you buy gloves and all that crap, right? It can get kind of like it can be suffocating at times. Like it can be overwhelming. But they do try to they do it out of goodwill. Like they try to make sure you're not being too stressed out by your studies. But by sending you a million emails, it kind of stresses you out even more, right? Yeah, but even the courses and stuff, your professors are much closer to you. So they will reach out every now and then. Even like the most famous busy professors will have time to meet you at your convenience. You know, they often even go to bars with students that they're kind of just like, you know, chilling, hanging out. They love being with students and supporting them. There's a lot more support, I would say, but suffocating support. There's a real campus culture. Like if you guys can see that, that's actually a campus. It's not just like a block of a building in the middle of London, right? You really do feel like you're part of this community. And like I said before, great food. I love the food here. The one thing that you guys should be, you know, considerate of is the fact that it's a 4-year degree. Okay, so all university degrees in the US are 4 years, so that's 1 extra year. And knowing that the US is already more expensive than the UK, year on year total, 4 years as well means that you're spending almost double. Well, not quite, but you're almost double on an education in the US and the UK, unless you obviously get financial aid. Okay, why is it 4 years? Is because the first year is something called a liberal arts education. I'll get to you real soon, Scott. Yeah, so the first year is a liberal arts education, which means you don't actually declare your major. You don't declare what you want to study until your second year. So if you get into the US for biology, you can actually switch to doing economics. Or if you get in for physics or whatever, you can switch to engineering. So I had a friend who got into, I think it was like English literature, and he ended up doing computer science, which is very interesting. Okay, so that's, basically the first year of university or college in the US, you do liberal arts, which means a general overview of all these skills, like including writing, including like basic science knowledge, including, you know, basic history knowledge, basic sociology. You do the whole bunch. Okay, so they make sure that you're a little more rounded and a little more prepared, you know, overall in most things. Okay, yeah, Scott? Scott, do you wanna? You can't unmute, right? Do you want to just ask in the chat?
You can do it now.
Let me just get some water real quick. Scott, ask away.
Oh, Scott.
So, is it easy to get financial aid
Yeah, I think so.
for the US? Is it easy?
Yes, yeah, I think so.
You're
Yeah.
listening. Yeah, what's up?
Is it easy to get financial aid, especially if you're an international student?
I think the financial aid process works similarly for internationals and domestic students, but it's a little harder from what I know for international students. That being said, I think it's because it's harder to get in the first place. Yeah, I need to actually check up on that. But I have heard of many students getting you know, full-on aid despite being an international student. Yeah. Yeah. So one reason that you might be a fan of a US liberal arts education is because US undergraduates or college students are much better writers than UK students. So most of my peers at LSE were just like, you know, verbally illiterate, like they were autistic, verbally autistic. So they couldn't speak, nor could they write anything well, like really well. Whereas in the US, because you have so much writing training in the first year of your liberal arts education, you know, most people are like, you know, up to standard, very, very good. Yeah. So in exchange for the extra cost of like the double the cost, the US holds absolute advantage for grad school applications. So if you're thinking of, you know, doing a master's degree or a PhD degree in the future, then the 4 years degree of the US is much more valuable than the UK. And this is just a sad truth. The UK recruits so much from the US. Most of my professors at LSE actually graduated from the US, but the US never recruits from the UK unless like you're exceptional. So if you graduate from the UK, you're basically not going to find a very good job in the US. Or find a very good position at a university in the US. Okay, so in the UK, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, MIT, that's HYPSM, have equal status to Oxbridge. Whereas in the US, Oxford is like less than, second tier universities like New York University or Duke or Northwestern. Like employees will still prefer domestic liberal arts degrees over your Oxford education. Okay, so Oxford is not valuable in the US, but it is valuable in everywhere else, funnily enough. So even in China, for example. Rest of the world, like I said, HYPSM equals Oxford, just not in the US. Here's some photos of the US to inspire you all. So here's Las Vegas and here's New York, two places that I visited, two funky, beautiful places. And yeah, Scott?
Did you see the Eiffel Tower there?
Yeah, there's a fake Eiffel Tower
Yeah.
in Las Vegas.
It's
Yeah,
small.
it's right here actually. If you can see it on the right corner. Yeah, it was kind of shit, not gonna lie. Yeah, but Vegas was fun, and New York was fun as well. Yeah, they're like very, very different to Europe. Personally, me speaking, I still like the UK a little more, just because it opens so many options for Europe. But this is great as well. And that's Miami Beach. So if anyone says the US has no nature, that's false. So the US has amazing nature and probably better seas than New Zealand. Like if you see Mission Bay, holy mother of God, that is the most disgusting thing you'll ever see, right? Mission Bay is like generic, probably the worst beach I've ever had the pleasure of tasting in my life. Yeah, Miami's quite nice. Here are some photos of me in the US. The bottom left one is a highlight, me getting a face mask put on for the first time in my life. Some of these are, there's a Harvard Library in the bottom right. And yeah, good memories. Oh yeah, so here's a very interesting set of photos. I hope the parents in this call won't lynch me, but the right-hand side is actually my professor. So that was the DJ professor that I was telling you guys about. So he is wicked smart. Okay, so one of the smartest guys on the planet. Like he leads the field in biology. He is incredibly kind and generous that he invited me over for Thanksgiving to spend the night with him and some other students. And we partied away and we listened to him rap. He was such a good freestyle rapper, right? And yeah, you can see how fun it is. Like that's kind of, the closeness with professors that you just wouldn't get in the UK. In the UK, they kind of just ignore you like, yeah, you little fool. In the US, no matter how big they are, they try to befriend their students, I guess. And yeah, I think I stayed at his house until like 4 a.m. or something that night. And we had a lot of deep, meaningful talks. We named a watermelon, I think Raphael, and we ate it. And the other person, she is a very, very good biologist as well at MIT. All these people have like 5K followers or something, and they do like insane work, like leading bleeding edge work that is changing the world. Yeah, so if anyone's interested in their research, I'm happy to link it afterwards. But you'll just see, like, even though these guys are geniuses, literal geniuses, smartest people I know, right? They are also so down to earth and, so willing to have fun. Australia, very simple, fuck Australia. Like if you guys want to go to Australia, then just stay in New Zealand. I'm just kidding. Australia's great, but this talk is about the US and UK. So we're gonna stick on that topic. Sorry for swearing, by the way, Ken. I hope this,
No worries.
you can censor it out afterwards.
I'm looking at you.
Yeah, so and a piece of advice that I would give to you all is get overall rankings out of your heads. All right. What do I mean by that? It's like when you guys search top universities worldwide 2022, that kind of ranking, it doesn't capture much at all. So in one year, for example, they ranked UCL, or I think it was like Imperial College, above Oxford and Cambridge. In no universe, trust me, guys, does that work. Okay, there should be no universe where a UCL person can say, oh, we're smarter or we're better than Oxford people, right? There's no universe where Imperial College, for example, is better than Yale or Princeton, right? It doesn't capture the metrics that actually matter, right? Because universities mostly operate on reputation for certain subjects, okay? these overall rankings often use these arbitrary metrics that don't mean much at all. So if you go to UCL and you find yourself ranked 6th in the world above Oxbridge and above Yale, Princeton, and some years even higher than Harvard or MIT, don't kid yourself. Yeah. So instead, a much more useful metric is to go by subject. Okay, certain schools are just known for certain subjects, and I've kind of compiled a list for you guys. For policy, obviously Harvard, right? But not for technology. U Chicago is great for policy as well. LSE is great for policy. Oxford, Cambridge is great for policy. Design, you might not even have heard, like Rhode Island, Parsons, right? You might just think, oh, Harvard, best for everything. No, right? There's much more. There's a much bigger world out there. Specialist universities that do much better in certain subjects. For economics, most of you might think, oh, Cambridge. Nope, right? Outdated, right? Harvard, MIT, U Chicago, Princeton, UC Berkeley, LSE. Like most by the way, guys, if you're into like economics, you probably want to be in the US because the UK or Europe in general is pretty behind on economics, except LSE. That's the only kind of forefront university in economics. Law, Harvard, Yale, NYU, Oxbridge, LSE, and the rest is rust and stardust. You guys can just I'll give you guys a quick second to take a look. Oh, might be worth highlighting. So if you're into arts, humanities, or history or English, especially English literature, Oxford and Cambridge are they're the places to be, like 100%. Not just in terms of the teaching and the resources, right? They have the oldest books in the world, the biggest libraries. They also just have the most brilliant culture that you can immerse yourself into. Okay. And obviously computer science, MIT, engineering, Stanford, MIT, right? Just anything that touches applied sciences, stay away. Don't go to Harvard or Yale. Okay. Okay, so here comes the key question that I think most, if not all of you are here for today. How do you get in, right? Well, it's complicated, okay, and it's difficult, but it's not impossible. Okay, in the UK, your best chance of getting in is to portray yourself as a laser-focused individual who is passionate about your subject. Okay, straight arrow, smart as hell, right? Top grades throughout. No dirty flecks, like not even an imperfection, and laser focus. You look like you're willing to marry your subject. You're willing to take it out on a honeymoon. Okay. The UK applicant, ideal applicant, is generally one-dimensionally intelligent, meaning most of their efforts or intelligence have been invested into their subject that they choose. Okay, they don't need to be a leader. They certainly don't need to be broadly interested in politics or that kind of stuff. They just need focus. Okay, and the same criteria applies for every university except for Oxbridge. Okay, so those are three variables, very simple. Grades, top grades, that's number one thing they look at. Okay, if your grades suck, you can't go to the UK, or at least you can't go to a really good university in the UK. You need a personal statement, which means a very well articulated and well marketed statement of your interest in this program, and you need letters of reference, which means reference from your school or reference from your teachers at school, willing to testify how great of an applicant you are. So I think one of the reasons I got in to LSE was because my letter of reference said something like, "Oh, Luca or Zisha is one of those candidates you see in one every 10 or 15 years." Like that's the kind of language you probably need them to write for you to stand out. Yeah, Scott?
How hard is it to write like a personal statement? How long does it need to be?
I think we should leave that for the Q&A session actually, because that would take a while to answer. Yeah, good question.
I'm gonna send it to you in chat.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Oxbridge, like I said before, you have admissions tests, you have supplementary essays, and you have interviews as well. The good news is for some people that actually thins it out a little, and that balances the interview process. So for example, if your grades are not that good, you can make up for it with the interview. Okay, so that might be a good reason why you should apply to Oxbridge. Okay, so generally people who get into Oxbridge, for example, they have less high grades than people who get into LSE or Imperial, because LSE Imperial, they filter by grades so much. Like you generally are looking, they're generally looking for 3 AAA star candidates, full stop. Unless they love you. Unless they love you, they'll make you like an A-star AA offer. Okay. Yeah. So I know people who got into Oxbridge with like AAA, you know, like very average marks, but at the same time, they don't think that you can do that because they, you know, they are so experienced. They've done like infinitely more than you probably in high school. Like they've attended everything. They've read so many books. They published papers probably in high school, and they had an ace of an interview where they showed off. And interviews are generally quite academic. They're not just like, oh, what are your passions, right? It's more like, okay, here's a question. Or if you're doing like something like economics, like here's a graph. Okay, analyze the gradient. What do you expect this? How do you calculate a marginal returns scale? That kind of stuff, like very technical. In history, it's more like, you know, here's the prompt, right? Analyze this prompt in 15 minutes and write an essay about it right now, and then explain it to me. That's an interview. Okay, so the interviews are very intense and rigorous. Okay, and if you do get into one of these interviews, my 2 cents is get some training online, like get someone to practice with you, because it will not be like any interview you've ever done in your life. Okay, like I've had people tell me that even their employer interviews, like at Microsoft or Facebook or these top firms, like or even like investment banks, like JP Morgan Chase, they were not even as scary or as difficult as the Oxbridge interview. Okay, and then other than Oxbridge, you also have the specialist universities that they look also for higher grades and higher orders of interest from you than other universities, namely LSE and Imperial College. They're looking for people who are actually good at economics and science. They're looking for the next big scientist or the next Nobel Prize winning economist. Okay, so they're generally a little more specific on their personal statement and on their references. Namely, they want perfect grades and a perfect statement and a perfect reference. Things like UCL, a lot less demanding. Okay, most people get in. It's like, I think it's a 40% acceptance rate or something like that. You have to check the figures. Okay, and the US, in contrast, you got to portray yourself as a rounded, intelligent, and kind character, a leader with a personality. Okay, they're looking really for leaders more than the academic. Okay, they're looking for academics surely, but they're mostly looking for leaders. Okay, so the admissions process is complex and demanding and very time consuming, involving common application essays, which means one essay that you need to send to all universities, as well as school specific essays that you need to send to each individual school. Okay, so that's the difference too. Like in the US, the application process is deregulated, which means you have to apply school by school. Okay, and every school has different demands, different questions, different prompts. Right, so if you're applying to 10 schools, then you're writing 10 essays plus a common app. And sometimes schools want like 2 essays. So like most top schools want 2 essays. So you're writing 20 essays in that case. So you better be sure you're good at writer, by the way. Okay, Scott, let's wait till the Q&A at the end, yeah. So every school has a different standard, okay? Literally, like that is so important. Like you will not get into every US school you apply to. That is the truth to this whole process. The fit matters more than anything, okay? If you do not fit the culture of the school, if the school thinks you do not fit to the environment, you do not have much to contribute to the school or to the society of the school, society on large, right? They will not accept you, okay? That's why even places like, say, if you get into Harvard, you might not be able to get into UC Berkeley. If you get into UC Berkeley, you might not be able to get into, let's say, UCLA. If you get into Princeton, you might not get into Yale. Like there's so much variation. They're looking for such different things. Whereas in the UK, they're looking for those same 3 ingredients across, and it's a very standardized application process. Okay, so generally, unless you are applying to those specialist universities that I talked about, so LSE Imperial, okay, if you get into Oxbridge, then you will get into every other university. Okay, like hands down. There's no way Warwick University or Edinburgh University or King's College London or UCL will reject you if Oxford, Cambridge has accepted you. Okay, Again, specialist universities, a little more specific, okay? So successful essays are often personality, silken, and creative. Okay, so I've seen like successful essays that are written in the form of poetry, like poems, or successful essays that are supposed to be lyrics from a song that the student has written. It just gets bizarre, okay? And the US welcomes the bizarre. They welcome the weird and wonderful. So if you want to, take advantage of that creative side of you, then the US is somewhere you can really funnel that towards. So I actually made the mistake, I think, of not applying to the US when I was younger, because I think I would have had actually a funner application process, because I quite like my creative side. I like being creative. Okay. But that doesn't mean all US schools like that. There are still exceptions, especially like MIT, Caltech. They don't give a shit. Okay, they don't care about your leadership experience. They just want they want geniuses. They want quirky geniuses. That's all. Okay, so I hope you guys kind of see how diverse the US is compared to the UK. UK is like more, one-dimensional focus. US is more broad and kind of, varied, multi-leveled. Okay, but even then in the US, there are places like MIT and Caltech that just want the geniuses. They don't care about anything else. They couldn't care less if you play sport in high school, for example. Okay, so my number one advice for you: research the school. Okay, research, research, research. Okay, so we're coming to the tail, I think, of this talk. The question is, how hard is it, right, to get into one of these places? The answer is very, okay, but not impossible. It takes work, and it takes a lot of determination and motivation, but it's not impossible. You guys, everyone in this room still has a shot right now. It's up to what you do now from here on that will determine your success. Okay, so US universities are especially unfriendly towards international students, okay, because they actually they have a quota on how many internationals they allow in. So places like Stanford, for example, have less than 1% acceptance rate. Like, think on those terms, okay, less than 1%. Okay, places like Harvard probably has less than 2% as well. Okay, so that's insanely difficult. In New Zealand, year on year, one person gets into Harvard, like for undergraduate. For masters, a little more. For undergraduate, like one person or two people. That's it. From the whole of New Zealand. Okay, like one or two people gets in. Oxbridge, probably like 10 to 20 people. Okay, but so UK universities generally have higher acceptance rates just because it's not as big as the US, not that much competition. Like the US is like China, right? There's so much competition, so many people applying, right? But that's not the whole story about the UK, by the way, guys. Like I've heard some students say, Oxbridge has an acceptance rate of like 20%, right? It's pretty easy to get in, 1 in 5, right? That is probably the worst thing you can think. It's actually something called selection bias, where in the UK, you're only allowed to apply to these top universities if you have the grades, the minimum grades, which is like A star AA. Okay, you earn your right to apply beforehand. Okay, so in the US, you don't have a limit. Everyone can apply to anything, right? So you can get some really stupid kind of like, imagine if I get into Harvard, like some dumb guy, and they try anyway. Yeah, in the UK, you only got 5 universities you're allowed to apply to, and you have to filter them by grades, by your realistic chances of getting in. Okay. Also, for example, Oxbridge, you are only allowed to choose one of these 2 schools for your undergraduate. Okay, so you're only allowed to apply to one, which means that instantly halves your acceptance rate. So from 20%, for example, to 10%, right? And then plus the selection effects, where you have to earn your right to apply, you're looking actually at way lower figures. So if you think that getting into any of these top universities doesn't require you to work your damn nut off right now, then you're not smart enough to get in. Like, that's just the truth. You're not determined enough, and you're certainly not intelligent enough to get in. Okay, even the most intelligent, even geniuses need to work their asses off, okay, to secure a spot. Okay. So one of the purpose of this talk, like I said before, is so I can ground you guys in reality, okay? To ground your expectations a little. You better work hard. So here's a snapshot of all these acceptance rates. I'm not going to focus too much on this, but Cambridge, like I said, was 21%. Harvard was like 5%, but that's even lower for internationals. MIT, 7%. Oxford, 17.5%. Stanford, 5%. And LSE, 8.9%. Yeah. So just think below 10% for any school that is really worth applying to. Okay. Or like dream schools, less than 10%. Okay. Especially in the UK, though, like 10% among people who all have your grades. All right. Like the grades are a minimum entry barrier. Okay. They're not everything. Like the kind of, unless you get like stellar grades, like top in your school every single year, or like a top in the world English award, then that's a bit different because you're standing out. But generally, like 4A stars in the UK, yeah, like I mean, yeah, most people have that. Most of my friends have that. I was actually like one of the dumb ones. My friends used to make fun of me for not getting 4A stars. Yeah, but most people have 4A stars. Okay, so this brings me on to basically one of our last slides, which is writing. Okay. I hope from the previous slides and everything that I've talked about thus far, you guys have noticed that one common kind of denominator in applying to these universities is writing. Okay, you need to be supremely good at writing. Okay, in the US, 20 essays. Like just think, 10 schools, 20 essays, plus your Common App. In the UK, one personal statement, sure, right? But if you're going to Oxbridge, right, you have to write like a supplementary essay. Okay, universities, unlike high school, put way more emphasis on writing. Okay, way more. And New Zealand, I don't know how many people are here are from New Zealand, but let me again ground you guys in expectations. New Zealand is by far the worst in writing education I've ever seen in terms of schooling, in school writing education. Worst in the world, like worse than Australia, worse than UK, worse than US, worse than Singapore, worse than fucking China, right? Even worse than China. Like imagine that. Like they don't even speak English there. Yeah, all right. Worse than like Vietnam, probably.
Calm down.
Okay, so New Zealand is decades behind in writing education. Okay, and that is going to be so against you guys in your application process. That's why most New Zealanders do not get in to these universities, because they suck at writing. Okay, and I don't mean like if you get a 90% in English literature, that doesn't mean you're good at writing. It doesn't mean it at all. There's a big difference between writing an acing an exam in an essay format and writing a beautifully crafted essay that can inspire people to let you in. Okay, the writing is in for both US and UK have they require different styles, different audiences, but they both look for very strong writers. They look for a specific kind of personality in your writing. Okay, so you need to be very powerful in your writing and portraying that kind of personality and portraying that kind of purpose. Okay, I'll leave you one tip in writing today, which is that good writers borrow and great writers steal. Okay, so feel free when you read an essay by a friend, or when you read one of my essays or whatever, right? Just steal every single word, every single phrase that you think is good and use it in your own writing. Okay, that's how all of writers get started. Even the best writers in the world, like J.K. Rowling, etc., they steal. They started off stealing people, and then they developed their own style. Like your style is basically an amalgamation of everything you've stolen or read. Okay. And that the next point is on what we're doing in New Zealand right now is we're trying to bridge this gap in writing that New Zealand is suffering, which is writing, right? So we're trying to get students to not only be good at beating an essay, right, but also just be top writers, full stop, period. Okay, and what I found to be effective in doing that is this thing called the case method, and I've used that with a lot of my students already, and I think Afra and Ken also employ to some capacity, which means as little theory as possible, right? We do the theory, very fast, 8 weeks, and the rest of the time we're just practicing. We're taking cases of other people's essays, and we're comparing, good essays and bad essays to give you guys real, case studies, real life examples, so that you can actually apply things. Okay, because it's just like math, right? You don't get good by just learning theory. You get good by doing past papers, by looking at more equations, by seeing more questions, right? So I think Olympia Writing School, at least for me personally, I mean, Ken and Afra might have different opinions on this, but it is very much defined by the case method. Okay, we're defined by things that actually work, no nonsense. Okay, things that are practical and useful. Okay, and through that, I hope, by absorbing other more inspired writers' writings, you guys will develop into better writers yourself, and hopefully that'd be enough to kind of take you to one of these top universities that would pass the threshold they demand. Ken and Afra, did you guys want to add on to that, or anything
No,
you guys want to add
Luca,
on?
I think we are probably the same on the same page in terms of values and stuff. To why we started this and why we think that writing is important for everyone. In the long run, not just not just only for exams, but for their life in the future. Writing is one of the skills that everyone have to have. That sort of thing.
I just think it's a bit unfortunate that in my opinion, in New Zealand, or just in high school in general, the emphasis on writing is like this much, right? And then when you graduate high school and when you need to apply to universities, and when you're actually in universities, that suddenly jumps to like that, right?
Exactly.
And nobody can see it coming, right? It's like nobody can see it.
Yeah, I figured that in New Zealand, the school have this sort of a assumption that writing is your own responsibility. So we can actually show you the tasks, and you need to finish task. And then, but in the meantime, whether you perform, your performance is better, it's good or bad, depends on yourself. Like you have to take care of yourself. That sort of approach in the high school. So which is not ideal compared to other countries. Especially in secondary education.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I guess it's worth warning you guys about this kind of, hike in the demand for writing, and how important the skill is, later on beyond high school. I've had this genius of a friend, he's called BH Cho, I think. He was top in my school, so Auckland Grammar, right? Top of my school. He got first in almost every subject he took. He's a super sciencey guy. He didn't get into a single US university that he applied to, not even like UCLA, because he just couldn't write. And this guy was Dux, right? Yeah, and it's sad because you know what? If he even got in, trust me, he'd be dead. He'd die in there. They would eat him alive because of how demanding the writing is, right? He gets spat out, right? So that's one key takeaway for you guys today. It's like why we are called Olympia Writing School, and why the hell I'm even doing this right now with Ken and Afra, right? It's because it actually matters. Okay, and that kind of leads me on to this general marketing ploy here, but I do actually believe in our system. I mean, we've had over 100 students already, so very much tested, and most of you guys are my students. So we offer a few courses right now. Namely general English. This is mainly for adults hoping to kind of, develop their language skills a bit further for general usage in a foreign country. This is not obviously, university centric, but we're still offering it. And in the same way, we have business English, for example, that's also for adults looking to use English in a business capacity. ESOL, this is Ken and Afra's domain. They're the experts, way better than I am. Whenever I teach ESOL, my brain explodes. I'm not particularly good at it, but they are. So if you guys have any questions on the ESOL curriculum, learning English as a second language, Ken and Afra are your people. English literature, woo, that's me. Okay, so good news is I offer classes. The bad news is I'm pretty much always full, and my classes are almost always full. But yeah, the English, I truly believe, okay, this is going to sound unbelievably arrogant, But I truly believe that my English literature class is the best in New Zealand and Australia, and not in the world, but New Zealand and Australia. And I think my students here can pretty much testify. Like, Scott, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Is that a
Oh,
threat?
okay, yeah, that's okay, fine. Yeah. But I do believe like we cover way more. We cover you know, writing style. We look at, you know, at least 2 essays a week, like real sample essays, you know, using the case method, and we write, you know, essays every single week, you know, to you know, guarantee that A star. Right. And I think Jamie, funny, so Jamie, I'm going to expose you for a second. So Jamie's a guy who like had an average of, like, had an average of C's, right, in every other subject, right, and I think an E in physics or something.
Yeah, let's go. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one, and an A star for English. So that's how much, you know, rigor we put into these courses, into the teaching. Okay, it's less about the course, more about the delivery and the method, getting case method. We also have general writing, which is basically the pre-evolution, kind of like the Pichu to the Pikachu of English literature. So either you're learning that, you know, to prepare for English literature, to transition later on. So you might be in, you know, your year 7 to 10, you haven't really, you know, encountered any serious English literature curricula at high school yet, right? Or you know, you might be slightly older, but you're ESOL and you don't want to take ESOL, but you still want to do writing, then, you know, general writing would be a great option. And obviously there's the IELTS and PT exam preparation for the internationals here. Like anyone who needs to take IELTS, everyone who applies to overseas universities, especially the UK, needs to take IELTS or TOEFL or one of these standardized examinations, and you must do well. Okay, so I think in New Zealand, the barrier, how much is the minimum for New Zealand for
6.5 for IELTS. Yeah. So
what's the maximum?
Maximum is 9.
Yeah, I think there are some places in the UK, I remember, who demand an 8.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
for IELTS. Yeah, like
very,
Cambridge,
very
I remember 8.
Yeah.
And most places like 7.5. Okay, so
education.
Yeah. And and that's
like medical school, right?
Yeah,
that's quite important. Law school,
yeah,
to accept anyone with the 8 or more.
Yeah,
because in order to learn law, you have to, you know, be very proficient in English, right? Yeah.
It's hard work, guys. It's hard work. Like I'm like, the first thing I said, like, you know, is that none of this is going to be easy. To be fair on me, right? I warned you guys as soon as the talk started. Like, none of this is going to be easy. Not for internationals, not for natives, not for anyone. Okay, it's tough. Right. So yeah, we do have a new admission cycle for 2022 in most of these classes. That begins on the 21st of February. The good news is you guys might be able to take one of those spots. The bad news is there's no special treatment for you guys. You guys still need to apply and do the placement test, I believe. And trust me, the English literature one is full-blown chaos. So just because of how many students, you know, are coming in. So I'm going to be relentless on the marking. So you still need to hand in that application and see if you can secure a spot, and then we'll rank you by your current abilities and, you know, your goals, etc., into these classes. But generally, classes are pretty competitive, and that's also in the spirit of university. When you're applying to these overseas universities, you're going to be competing, and same with our school here. You're going to be competing just to earn a spot, and then that's where the real stuff comes in. Like you earn a spot, and then we'll help you and right to the top, basically. Okay. I'm not sure actually for my English literature course how many spots there are available. I need to check on that again. But there are definitely some opening up. But like I said, guys, you know, highly cutthroat competition. And I know, like, I tell my students this all the time, and I think Afra and Ken will say something similar to their students. But I tell my students, you guys, one homework you messed up, or like you don't hand in homework 2 weeks in a row, you're out. Okay, your place is always up for grabs. I literally say, I remind my students of that every single week. I need to be tough on you guys. Who can attest to that, by the way? Jamie, Scott, anyone here,
confirm.
Anna, right? Sunny, probably here as well. Yeah, I say that all the time. Like classes are meritocratic. You earn your spot, full stop, right? All right, so that brings us to the conclusion of this talk, at least the kind of lecture side of it, right? Yeah, two things. Follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. I have to put that in. Sorry, guys, personal. Yeah, Queena, what's up?
Yeah, just a quick question about personal statement for UK.
Yeah.
So how did you construct your personal statement? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, really good question. And also nice to talk to you again, Queena. I've missed you so long. Queena was one of my earliest students from like 3 years back. Anyways, so the personal statement, what I'd recommend is your first draft is going to be shit invariably. There's no way around that because you are not experienced in writing these unless you've had formal training in the art of writing, like for example, like Scott, for example, right? It's not going to be good, but it will be good after iterations if you give that to your teacher, if you give that to your friends, right? Every single time, like annoy them with it, ask them for feedback, right? Expose yourself, be naked in front of them, and they're going to help you improve it iteration by iteration. Like by the end of my kind of experimentation period with my personal statement looked completely different. All right, and I learned like a metric ton, just revising through the drafts. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But like, how would you suggest to the structure of P as
structure?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. This might be a bit long for like a question on Zoom, but basically, why you're interested, state your interest in your subject field. Okay, for example, economics. State why you're interested in the subject field, right? In the next part, state why you are prepared and accomplished and ready and deserving in your subject field in the next part. And then state your leadership experience and all that miscellaneous stuff in a tiny paragraph below. And say something about the university. There is a solid structure. I can send it to you afterwards as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Any other questions?
There's my ones on the chat.
Yeah.
But
Also questions on the chat.
Scott, which one?
So
You
the
send
first
to
one is
everyone?
what about
I sent
plagiarism?
it privately to Luca, the one about the
Personal statements, how long is their prompt? Okay, so they will give you a limit. And I can't remember exactly how much. I think it was 1,000 or 1,500 characters, something like that. It's not very long. So you have to learn how to write succinctly, which is, by the way, Scott, what's the first thing I taught you? How to write succinctly, right? How to like compress everything. And yeah, so I brainwash my students into thinking that write succinctly and clearly. How long should each essay be? So that would very much depend on the school you're applying to in the US. In the UK, it's all standardized, so you only have one application to write. Who said worse than Fiji? Yes, New Zealand's writing education. Okay, I'm not actually sure if New Zealand's writing education is worse than Fiji. Yeah, they can be pretty brutal there, but I'm just saying it's bad for a developed nation. All right. Amy, I'll get to you as soon as I've quickly answered these on the chat already. Plagiarism, I'm assuming, Scott, you're talking about stealing, and you should know better.
Yeah.
So basically, if it's copyrighted, you can't steal it. Okay, so if it's a quote, right? Anything else, hands-free, do what you want, especially what I write, right? I keep telling you guys, like anything that you see from me, that's why I actually, these days, I've been showing my students more of my writing just because they can take as much as they want. Like it's free resources, right? For you guys to use, and there's no copyright. There's no way, someone's gonna be like, have you asked Luca for permission, right? And even if they did, I'll say, I don't care. Right?
Yeah. So just on that note, Scott, I think I've had a saying that is, copy and paste, right? So the matter of copying, I think, is fine. You can copy, But the matter of pasting, I think you should, learn the art of paraphrasing and try to just digest the whole gist of the whole idea, and then just use it in your own way. That sort of pasting is important. Yeah, you can't just get anything, copy and paste doesn't change anything, just makes or even just a makeup. It's not enough. No.
I might have been unclear on that, guys. Sorry. I meant not copying sentences. That would be plagiarism. I meant copying words and phrases. That's what I said before, right? Phrases, for example, myopic rust is a beautiful phrase that you probably haven't heard of these two words being used together, right? Then you can use them. Okay, there's no copyright on two words, or there's no plagiarism on two words. There's also, for example, something I said before to my students. It was like something about I can't remember actually. It was like richly explore or something, like even simple things like richly explore.
Poignantly portrayed.
Yeah, poignantly portrayed, this kind of stuff, right? They're all like up for grabs, free stuff, right? You could use in your essay to make your writing just a little extra sexier and spicier. Yeah. And Lulu, Luca, could you please share your, wait, actually there's someone above that. How about to start high school in US or UK to get good writing? Oh, yeah, so yeah, you're definitely going to get a better writing education in the UK or US compared to New Zealand if you're just doing school. That would be something, if you have the family background and resources to, I think you should consider. I know actually a very good friend called Rick. He got a scholarship to the UK for high school at this place called Eton College, which is very famous. And then he got into Harvard undergrad by writing a beautiful essay because they have formal writing training in Eton College. Yeah. But if you find yourself even if you're in the US or UK, I would still recommend getting writing training, formal writing training, specialized writing training as a subject, not just English literature or English language, but rather writing, which is what why we have Olympia Writing School. Could you please share your family upbringing? What a good question. Yeah, my family upbringing is very liberal. So my parents, when I was in middle school, they used to be a lot more harsh on me. But when I got into high school, they kind of just let go. It's more like laissez-faire. They trusted that yes, Amy, by the way, visually arresting was exactly the one that I was thinking of for copyright phrase for something that you could steal. Sorry, back to Lulu. So yeah, my parents were very trusting of me. And I think when I was young, I really appreciated that trust. And I could communicate with them on a very personal level. So for example, I think in year 10 or year 11, I had a conversation with my mom. I said, hey mom, look, a lot of people are studying till very late. And I feel like I'm struggling to keep up with my, with my peers, despite me, already spending all my time on schoolwork, etc. And my mom just said, okay, then you can decide when you want to sleep, but be responsible, right? That was like such a, profound moment for me, because it was just like, my mom actually trusts me. And I know most of you guys, like the students in this room, are nowhere near that level of discipline, but you bet your ass that you need to be if you want to get into one of these universities. Also, my parents were very, they let me see the world. Like they let me kind of discover myself and what I wanted. They never told me you have to do this subject, or you must go to this place, or you must do that, this and that. You must study now. Or they never really, they gave me inspiration. Like my dad would also always have like these great conversations with me, but they never really, forced me into anything. Like even, even when I wanted to get a part-time job, like scrubbing toilets at a restaurant, my parents were not opposed. They were that like, lenient on me.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I did. Like my first job,
Really?
Longhua, Yeah,
Oh.
like the Chinese Epson.
That restaurant.
I was
yeah.
paid $8 an hour, like $8 an hour. Like that's half
Was
of
that
minimum
legal
wage.
at the time?
Oh, they didn't care. Like, yeah, and I was scrubbing toilets, and yeah, and they also, I think, taught me how to be self-sufficient, self-sustaining. For example, my first big buy, which was a laptop, an Alienware laptop, I had to work my ass off delivering newspapers and scrubbing toilets to get it. So I kind of knew from there, hard work means outcome and output, and and results. So I think my parents left in me this kind of hard work and self-discipline mentality. And I know a lot of my students now do not have that trust from parents, but I also want you guys to think about why that is. Probably because of your own actions, or maybe because you guys are all degenerates so far. Yeah. So basically, loose parenting, a lot of trust, but the trust goes both ways. They trust me, I trust them. Yeah. Amy. Yeah. So I can already see so many of my students are commenting on, Luca phrases that they've stolen poignantly portrays from Sophia. Hi, Sophia, by the way. And Amy, visually arresting. Yeah.
So Luca, it's almost time. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, people can. Hold on. Yeah, so I'll just conclude very, very quickly. And anyone who wants to stay a bit longer to get some questions answered, I'm open to staying longer just to help you guys out. This is not a, this is not strictly business. I enjoy doing this as well. So, and if, after my conclusion, if you want to leave, you're free to leave, but people who have questions or want to tune in, you're also free to stay. So I just wanted to say, once again, this, Olympia Writing School right now is my life. Okay, it's my, it's really my everything. Ken and Afra are such, great partners to have in this cause. Yeah, and it's really not just English tutoring. It's really creating a revolution in writing, right? And it's revolutionizing and upskilling, upgrading the entirety of New Zealand's writing education. Honestly, most of you guys have learned from me already, and I have no shortage of students myself. There's I have students, to sustain myself for the next lifetime and more, right? But this is different because I feel like we can have the scale and capacity to do the research and writing that I've always wanted to do, and to actually create some kind of systematic change in the New Zealand system, and to get more New Zealanders like you guys, or more people from elsewhere, to empower you guys in writing so that you can write your way to top universities, to top jobs, and to also be more efficient communicators, right? So I just wanted to end on that note. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're enrolled in our services or not, but please support us. Please support me on this mission. Follow us on WeChat, or, at least, check up on us every now and then to see, if we're still alive, which obviously we're going to be, right? We have a website, and owriting.school. It's a very, very simple site. And I'm going to be posting more and more educational content on my Instagram, which has almost 10,000 followers, I think. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, I think 9,874. So if you guys all follow me, I think I'm up to 10K. But yeah, so this is the foremost kind of occupation in my life. Yeah. So on that note, I wish you guys all a lovely journey, a very successful journey, and one with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but ultimately a richly rewarding and learning journey, right? And yeah, any final words from Afra?
Yeah, Afra, you want to just introduce something of the enrollment and stuff if anybody's interested?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Afra again. OK， 现在大家已经听了很久的英文了，那我现在用中文来跟大家说一下我们整个的一个课程啊。课程方面呢，我们主要